Hey everyone, it's Lori from Scraps by Sissy. Welcome to another fabulous Friday. Today we're going to do a faux leather technique. I needed to come up with a couple of masculine cards, and like everybody else, I tend to struggle with them too. So of course I do what every good crafter does, and I hit Pinterest and I found this faux leather technique and absolutely fell in love with it. So the supplies you'll need for this, we're using this cowboy boot stamp set from the Country Livin' stamp set, and then the Happy Birthday comes from the Better Together stamp set, which is actually, it's a twofer. You get two stamp cases full of all these sentiments, and we're going to use the Happy Birthday. This set actually works really well for the inside and the outside of the card. I know a lot of times we struggle with an inside sentiment. Now the cardstock we're going to use a piece of chocolate chip, and it's cut at 8.5, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4, and a piece of the Wood Textures Designer Series paper, and I've cut this at 4 by 5 1/4. This is one of the packs that's on sale right now through the 31st. If you buy 3 packs of Designer Series paper, and there's a select few, you get the 4th one for free. So now's the time to stock up on that. The inks we're going to be using are chocolate chip, soft suede, pumpkin pie, and crushed curry. Set that aside. We're going to actually create this burnished effect by tearing the Designer Series paper, and I'm going to show you a trick on how to easily tear your paper. We're also going to use a piece of the new jute twine. This is in the new holiday catalog. We're also going to use the Stampin' Pierce mat and a stylus. And one last thing we have on the card are the enamel, the metallic enamel shapes. So let's get started. I've cut a piece of crumb cake with the stitched framelits, and we're going to stamp the boots first. We're going to do that in chocolate chip to give it a good outline. You want to ink up your stamp. Aside. Okay, so after you stamped it, you're going to take your Stampin' Pierce mat and your stylus. This comes with the scoreboard. It has a large end and a little end. We're going to use the little end, and you're just going to trace over the outline, pressing into the mat. You don't want to press too hard because you don't want to end up tearing the paper, but you do want to make the deep impression. Now I've seen some just do the outside, the extreme outside of the image, but I'm going to go ahead and outline a little more to give it more of an embossing when you go to color it. I'm just going to outline everything. Okay, so once you have it, you can see the embossing on the cardstock. You're going to want to take a piece of scratch paper, or in this case, our grid paper. I love this stuff. It really protects your surfaces. And I have my sponges all ready. You're going to start with crushed curry. I'm going to ink up your sponge, and you're just going to, this is really going to shake my table. Sorry. Maybe Santa will bring me a different table for in here. You're just going to sponge all the edges. You can even color over the boots lightly, and you'll see why in a few minutes. Okay, so we'll set that aside. Now you're going to go with the pumpkin pie. You're going to follow the same directions, except you want to leave some of the spots open. I shouldn't say open. You want to leave some spots of the crushed curry. You don't want to cover them all up, I should say. But you do want to burnish those edges. Kind of go over the boots too. Okay, so then the next step is the soft suede. And this is where you really want to get the edge of the framelit so that it has a really burnished edge that looks like leather. You know how the edges always tend to be a little bit darker? And then you want to really color over those boots. And when you do that, the indentations of the embossing really start to show up. Makes the embossed portion really pop. Okay. Now we're going to go back over it with some pumpkin pie. And it'll make the leather pop. Just kind of make sure I'm getting some ink on there. Should have inked up that pad. See how the pumpkin pie really gives it that brighter effect? Okay, and then one last step. Excuse me, we're going to take the chocolate chip and just kind of go over just the edges. In fact, you can even do it this way, which might be a little bit faster for you. But it really gives the edges that burnished look. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Definitely looks like a piece of leather. And if you can see, oops, get you in some light. You can kind of see the embossed effect on it too. Okay, so we're going to set that. We're all done with those. Keep the chocolate chip out because we're going to stamp the sentiment in a minute. Okay, so what we're going to do is trim down the paper by tearing it. And I saw another demonstrator do this. I filled my aqua painter with alcohol, and I'm just going to flip that over. I'm just going to paint the edges down, and that's going to help loosen up the fibers a little bit. The alcohol dries faster than water, and that gives you a more controlled tear. So that you're not, you know, sometimes when you go to tear a piece of paper, how it just goes all over the place, just wild, like that. Okay, so we'll go back over. I probably missed some alcohol on that side. Come down here. And just tear. So it gives it a straighter tear. Now once you get that all torn, get this garbage out of the way, you can go back with your chocolate chip and the sponge, and it's going to give it kind of a burned effect. You know, like how they used to burn old maps. And you're just going to cover the white tearing on the paper. Now, I'm going to stamp the sentiment, and I chose the chocolate chip because I wanted it to look kind of like, what do they call it? When they burn the cattle with the branding. I even tried embossing it after I stamped it, but it didn't look very good, so we're just going to go with stamping. Make sure I'm stamping right side up. That's always a good thing. Stamp it straight down, straight up. There's a piece of paper there. Okay, so let's build our card. Set this, take this out. I'm done making a mess there. So I'm just using the fast fuse. Onto our card base. And see, by making it just a 1/4 inch shorter or smaller on all sides, it gives you lots of room for the tearing. Okay, now we're going to take that jute and we're going to make a lariat. Okay, so you're just going to cut a piece. And then another short piece to make the knot. I know you're supposed to have it, I think, what do they call that? Some kind of a loop around it, but I'm cheating today. Just going to tie a knot around the loop. This stuff makes great rope for your cards. There. I'm going to set that there. I'm using the multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm just going to run. Oh, note to self, don't glue it over the card like that. Sometimes it'll drip, and we know what happens there. So you're just adding it to the rope like this. I'm going to set that down. When it dries, that white that you see will turn clear. And then I'm also going to use it on our piece of leather. Should have done that in the shot. I just did a little bit like that. You could actually put some on the rope too, so that the cardstock has something to grip. Just gonna set that in there like that. Hold it for a second. Make sure it's straight. It'll take a minute or a second to dry. While it's drying, so we're going to go ahead and add a couple of the metallic enamel shapes. And this is where I probably should have had my tweezers, because I got liquid glue on my hands. And there you go. We have a finished masculine card. It wasn't too bad. For more information on this card, you can go to scrapsbysissy.com. You can get all the measurements and all the product numbers. And be sure to leave a comment. I love getting comments from everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.